The woods are full of stars. They flicker, come closer, run away. They want me to chase them, to play hide and seek. They dance around the tree trunks, float up on the gusts of wind that shiver through the branches, disappear among the leaves. I let out a howl, eager to run with them. I want everyone to know I'm there. Then they bunch up and fly towards me like an arrow. Rushing down, they're soon upon me, but just before the spear of light pierces my breast, they disappear, and the dark of night returns. In the darkness, I feel the tangled roots of stories keeping the forest alive, and I finally catch the scent of the enemy. I jump forward, and then I wake up. Good evening, Council. It's been just over a month since I made my video on upcoming games and media set in the World of Darkness, and at that time, Heart of the Forest was a game we knew very little about. A Werewolf the Apocalypse game, developed by Different Tales, a Polish company with credentials from the first Witcher game and the Wanderlust games, and, I assumed, designed to be more focused on telling a story through text and illustrations than through visceral combat against the servants of the Wyrm, a sort of yin to the yang of Earthblood's brutality and rage against the destruction of Gaia. And how fitting, after all, that we would get a second game to show us the more spiritual side of the Garou, the duality that offsets the righteous fury of Earthblood, where you embody Gaia's vengeance. Well, since then, I have been given the opportunity to try out a demo of Heart of the Forest, and I can tell you that my initial interpretation wasn't necessarily wrong, but far from everything. There is rage in Heart of the Forest, and while the amount of Endron Fomori monsters I slaughtered in this demo were, well, none, I came away from it fully aware that the injustices done to Puszcza, the titular forest, would not go unpunished. This game is an interactive novel. That means that it's a story being told to you through the medium of text and art, and one where you can influence how the story is told by making choices. It is not a choose-your-own-adventure like Coteries of New York, although at times I feel like the lines are a little bit blurred between these definitions. In Heart of the Forest, you play as a young American woman with Polish ancestry named Maia. Maia has gone to Poland ostensibly to study medicine, but in reality she is there because she keeps dreaming about a forest her paternal grandfather would tell her about before her mother left her father. Throughout the demo, I was presented with many situations where I could choose how Maia would react to events around her. I had a few key stats to help me with this, namely Rage, a resource determining how engaged or detached Maia would be with the things happening around her, and Willpower, which could be used to force Maia to suppress her immediate reaction to previously mentioned events. And just like in Werewolf the Apocalypse, Maia can spend or gain rage and willpower through her actions to power through difficult situations, or assert herself against others. If Maia has a high value in rage, she will be more go-getting, more aggressive in her approach. But she will also have trouble emphasizing with others, and can easily unnerve those around her who might be intimidated by her aggressive demeanor. A lower rage score will make Maia more open and emphatic, but also less likely to step up and face her fears head-on. This is a good translation of the system in my opinion, and one that I feel has a good impact on the story being told. I've played through the demo 3 times at the time of writing, and while the story hits certain keynotes consistently, the way it does so, and the way that Maia perceives them, were different depending on my previous choices and how much rage I had accumulated. Willpower, on the other hand, is sort of a handbrake for rage, amongst other things. It is also replenished when Maia works towards her objective, so to speak, which, by the way, is decided upon by the player. Perhaps Maia has gone to Poland to learn more about her ancestry, or maybe she went simply because she wanted to learn more about the forest and why she was dreaming of it. There is finally a third stat as well, described by the developers as personality. Now in the demo we didn't get to see that much of this, but I'm sure it will have a larger impact on the rest of the story. Essentially, Maia's personality is defined by her auspice. If you're unfamiliar with this term, I have made a video describing the 5 of them in detail, but to sum them up, there are 5 archetypes of werewolves, based on which phase the moon was in when the werewolf, or Garou as they call themselves, was born. A Garou born under the new moon is Ragabash, a questioner of the way and a trickster. They challenge preconceptions, they lighten the mood, infuse some well-needed humility in their pack, and are also excellent scouts and spies. The Thurgs are of the crescent moon, and they are the spiritual guides and mystics of the Garou. They commune with spirits and conduct many rituals and rites. The half-moons are the Philodox, the judges and peacekeepers, and they seek to guide their fellow Garou to balance in all things, and often serve as leaders, at least during peace times. The Garou born under the gibbous moon are storytellers, poets, and lore keepers. They often have excellent memories for names and songs, and are called the Galliards. Finally, the Arun are Gaia's most powerful warriors, born under the full moon and prone to strong fits of rage as they witness the unjust treatment of Mother Earth. They are inspirational leaders as well, if they can learn to master their rage. It is not decided in the game which auspice Maia belongs to, that is instead decided by the decisions made by the player. And even just in the demo, there were quite a few times where the story took on a different tone, events changing to adapt to whichever auspice I was moving towards. And I think that's one of the things I liked the most playing this game. Even though many things played out pretty much the same way during the 3 runs, they all had clear differences in the details. In my first playthrough, I had Maia freak out Anya by mistake, the Norwegian woman she was traveling with to the town near the forest, and who later ditched Maia as soon as possible. The second time, the two instead grew close as friends, sharing in the outrage of the logging being done nearby. Likewise, when Maia got dumped by Anya, she instead met up with Bartek, a local guy who had promised to help Maia out when she got there. Neither Anya nor Bartek were crucial to the events going on throughout the story, but it was a nice touch to add that kind of variety into the game. Maia is shown around the forest by a local guide named Daniel, who seems to be more than what he first appears, and him and Maia share a few moments where he senses the Garou heritage in her, or at least that's what I presume was happening. The game is not very overt, at least not in the demo, about what Maia actually is, so it's fun to see her discovering these sides of herself along with the others. Eventually the day ends and Maia goes to bed, only to once again have a prophetic dream about Puszcza, the forest. The forest itself is an entity in this story and can either be beautiful and untamed, or oppressive and unnerving, depending on what sort of person you're making Maia out to be. The forest, Puszcza, is actually named Puszcza Białowieża, pardon my poor Polish, and there's also some connection to local Polish legends and events throughout the game. Something I really liked about this game, as well as many other titles I've been researching, is that Paradox and White Wolf are not afraid to let these developers work on the settings they know. It's not all LA or New York or London, but rather Montreal, Boston, and now a forest in northern Poland, bordering Belarus. The art style of this game is fantastic, and it works really well with the narrative. There's this great merging of photos and art, a collage technique that very much resembles the classical pieces of Dave McKean, who made the covers for the Sandman graphic novels. The art is very evocative, and goes from relative normalcy when Maia is with other people in town, to a giant wolf's head with the eyes representing 2 different entrances into a burrow, or Maia, a bleeding tree in the middle of a forest of peeled corpses representing felled trees. Together with the art, the music is very suitable for this type of game. It is subtle, never intruding too much, but it makes great use of natural sounds like bird calls or the rustling of the wind through leaves. I feel like the direction of the music and art work very well in tandem, as they're almost an abstract representation of the story. It's not very memorable, any of the pieces, but I don't think that's a problem. It very much reminds me of when I used to walk through the forest where I was growing up, and I would remember the paths I was taking, but not all the plants around me. The storytelling in this game hits a perfect note of saying a lot without getting wordy. Short, powerful sentences and paragraphs with lots of input from the player. If you're familiar with visual novels like When They Cry series, which could go on for pages before you were allowed to give any input, these are quite the opposite. And I found it nice that I could even add some flair to the current conversation, even if that ultimately didn't lead anywhere. It meant I could learn more about the people or places if I felt I wanted to. The choice of Maia, who is 24 years old, is a great choice in and of itself, but it also plays masterfully off of Earthblood's Kahal, who is a grizzled veteran by the time we get to play him. Maia, meanwhile, has presumably not even undergone her first change yet, but that of course does not make her any less interesting to play. The fact that we can play her how we want her to be played is a big bonus as well, and during my first playthrough I went with options that I would have chosen myself, and ended up being a full moon, an Arun, which amusingly enough is usually where I end up when I try to figure out my own auspice. The second time I went the Ragabash route, which played out significantly different from the first, and finally the third one I tried to go with Philodox, which turned out to be difficult because, you know, balance. The game is aimed to be released in the fourth quarter of this year, and they've already got a solid engine for it, so I'm not concerned that there will be any delays, but I mean, you never know. Although the amount of blatant werewolf content in the demo was limited to a few scenes, I still felt the impact of some of Werewolf the Apocalypse's core themes, and I cannot wait to learn more about Maia's family's past, their relationship to the forest, and why the locals seem to consider their line cursed. So if you're excited about this game as well, let me know in the comments. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them to the extent I'm capable of, and hopefully this game will be available as a demo later on, although that has not been confirmed. Anyway, thanks for sticking around everyone. Now be careful out there. Oh wait a minute, this is a werewolf video. So, the earth is dying. When will you rage?